I remember when I was a teenager and Tommy Wiseau's The Room first found its way into my life. This bizarro story of adulterous heartbreak is, in most conceivable respects to cinematography and filmmaking, inept. It was shot poorly, audio mixed and ADR'd poorly, inconsistent with its sense of time, redundant scenes that contributed little of any substance, if any at all, and a story that seemed like it was sleepwalking its way through the plot. Because of that ineptitude, the film managed to break out into popular cultural consensus, becoming the subject of watch parties, midnight screenings, dramatic readings, and every permutation of cult fanbase adoration that one could possibly imagine. I was among those people, perhaps not at the feverish level of others I knew, but I was telling everyone I could that this film was beyond crazy and had to be seen to be believed. It was the first real time the phrase, "so bad it's good," entered my vocabulary. Everything about the film that should have been a bug instead became a feature, and finding new ways the film royally screwed something up became tantamount to watching figure skaters fall on the rink. The entertainment lay in the failure. I saw the film several times over the ensuing years, but every time I did not enjoy it to the extent that I once did before. I still laughed, but not as heartily. Then a couple of years ago, I saw it again and simply felt nothing. What had changed this time to make my reaction so radically different from before? I thought about, just like with my own reaction to K-On!, I had simply changed so much as a person that my reaction was essentially born anew. But it wasn't just this one isolated example. Other franchises or properties that I had come to like because they were so bad it's good no longer hit me in the same way that they once did. Was it overexposure to them? Did I unconsciously decide that so bad it's good no longer applied to me? Did my enthusiasm for it die along with everyone else who had simply decided to move on to something else? Then I saw Rent-A-Girlfriend Season 2, and everything felt like it made sense. I don't need to provide any deep context for Rent-A-Girlfriend, do I? It's only one of the most popular and discussed anime-manga franchises of recent memory. Its silly, if not also incredibly stupid story of Kazuya using a girlfriend rental service to cope with heartbreak, and then developing feelings for one of the girls, Chizuru, burst its way into the community years ago. The manga's first season aired back in 2020, and just recently finished its second season in summer 2022. I watched the first season, and I liked it in that so bad it's good way. It came across as such a bizarre series of absurd collisions that defied any real sense of plausibility, comedic or otherwise. That implausibility was part of the inherent draw, and there was a kind of communal frustration at Kazuya's incompetence at, well, existing, as well as arguing over which of the four girls in the narrative was the best character or the best romantic partner. Because, let's not kid ourselves, the best character is most definitely not Kazuya. But watching the second season brought me no such joy. Unlike before, where I looked forward to the various ways that the characters would stumble over themselves or screw something up completely, it was replaced with the sense of asking, why am I wasting my time watching this? Even the couple of characters who I did kind of like from the previous season weren't landing with the same kind of satisfaction that Season 1 did. There was an emptiness to the whole, as though I had the train ticket in my pocket and it fell out at some point, so I missed my train. Even so, it wasn't a case where the dislike for the second season bled into the first. Even at the time I'm making this video, I can still watch isolated clips from the first season and still find them amusing and chuckle. So, what exactly happened? What happened to the whole so bad it's good experience that evaporated and left no traces behind? So bad it's good, in a sense, requires treating something as a cultural oddity, a strange conglomeration of parts that are seemingly incongruously bad with each other, yet somehow nevertheless have a gravitational pull to it. But something being bad is in and of itself not enough, of course. Goodness knows that there is a lot of bad entertainment we've watched in our lives that we would prefer to put far behind us and never look back on. The stuff of so bad it's good, the ingredient that magically transforms the incompetent into the incompetently beautiful, is the viewer's curiosity to bridge that intangible gap. It requires an influx of fascination, of being able to constantly seek new things in the already familiar, and enjoy the exercise of sharing that with everyone else. Each subsequent flaw treats itself as landmarks on a treasure map, all the while searching for and hoping that you don't find the X where it marks the spot, because finding the X means you've completed your journey, and who wants to do that for something that keeps providing new, hilarious insight? But the reality is that So Bad It's Good has an expiration date. That treasure map, if you want to continue with that visual metaphor, has numerous ways in which it can go wrong. At any point along the journey, maybe you read a direction incorrectly, or maybe the map got lost somewhere. Maybe the map got a hole in it so you cannot read it further, or you found out the map is out of date with the landscape it was supposed to be charting. Or maybe you found another map that leads to an even bigger bounty and have discarded the one in your hand. Jeez, this metaphor is terrible. Whichever bad metaphorical end you want to ascribe to it, it implies that there is a point where the hunt for riches becomes a pointless endeavor. The spontaneity of the exercise becomes more of a chore, more laborious than gratifying. So what exactly makes Rent-A-Girlfriend Season 2 so laborious compared to Season 1? It primarily rests on two factors, the first of which being the complete lack of any sense of progression in most matters. Since the series is a romantic comedy, it makes sense that it would adopt the approach of delaying the main couple getting together as much as possible so as to drag things out. Even bearing this approach in mind, it still rests on the idea of the main couple getting together at some point. It is not structured like a vignette-style show where tiny little episodic stories are presented in whichever order possibly the director would want to do. As such, an inherent danger is that if things read as too stagnant or not progressing enough, even the jokes or moments that are at least presented to be comedic will not land as effectively. Rent-A-Girlfriend Season 2 does nothing to encourage the notion that Chizuru and Kazuya are going to get together eventually beyond incidental moments, nor that Kazuya will get back with Mami, dump them both and pick Ruka, or take the fourth option with Sumi. The first season has the excuse of gradually introducing the ensemble and establishing the various ways in which they collide with each other both situationally in the plot and in their overall attitudes towards Kazuya. Its nature as an expository season means it doesn't have to do all the dramatic heavy lifting right away. But with the stage set proper and the need to see the direction that the story will take off go, there needs to be some semblance of progression, some semblance of forward motion that leads to something. Instead, many of the show's scenarios are centered around hijinks that don't have enough humor to justify their existence. There is so much inner monologuing that does little more than to reinforce what we already know. That's not to say that the first season didn't have that, but its presence in Season 2 felt vastly more frequent and insipid comparatively, even if it were not actually the case. And part of the reason for this lack of forward momentum in the story is that the characters themselves are, even here, not compellingly written enough. Mami and Ruka, while perhaps being two of the more contentious characters, which is really not saying much given that just about everybody except Sumi is contentious in some respect, actively introduce conflict into the plot, but it always comes with some sort of caveat. Mami, as the antagonist who seeks to make Kazuya's life a misery, is frequently relegated to the background or periods of long absence, while Ruka is so fixated on Kazuya despite the fact that she knows he has feelings for someone else, and chastises him for not telling the truth about his relationship with Chizuru. Sumi is an ancillary presence, but again is also absent for long stretches of time. To be sure, all of the girls don't need to be present at all times in order for the story to move, but their presence should mark a sense of comedic or dramatic importance in some facet, and so often they don't do that. There's no sense that anything has changed in a significant manner, making so much of what transpires seem so insubstantial and devoid of meaning. The show clings so tightly to the status quo that events that are supposed to be earth-shaking don't even register on the narrative Richter scale. In the end, I just had to ask myself, what's the point of going on? All these collisions, all these scenarios, and I still feel like we're right back where we started. I know that the series has its genuine fans, and that there are some who watch it because the So Bad It's Good vibe is still present. And I'm happy that the series is able to provide entertainment for them. But for me, Rent-A-Girlfriend is a reminder that the So Bad It's Good sentiment has an expiration date. There comes a point where the end of the road arrives, and at that point, it might be best to just have the series go gentle into the good night. If a third season does wait over the horizon, I might just have to say no thank you that time around. There is one thing that might make future seasons worth watching. How would it adapt the infamous Chapter 218? Don't lie, you know you're at least a little bit curious.